it's not beneficial if one wrestler just comes and, puts himself over and that's the end of it. And the wrestlers that we book don't have that attitude. They want East to grow, which means that they all grow. They want to see their colleagues do better. And it's a really nice environment, like backstage at our shows.
Welcome back to Grapple Theory. Thanks so much for joining us once again. And we're stepping out of the ring to the promoting world today with our guest, as we're joined by Ian from Pro Wrestling East. And those of you who've been to Pro Wrestling East might know him as Frank, as well as his in-ring persona. But either way, Ian, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, man. Thank you for having me. It's a nice start to the week, and I'm excited to talk wrestling with you.
Of course, it's always good to get a chance to talk wrestling. I think that's what we all love, right? That's why we're all here. It's just that. Exactly. Wrestling doesn't always have to be very controversial with everyone having divided opinions, as social media would have you believe.
Exactly. I'm a big fan of the Simon Miller approach of, be positive,
Exactly. Well, it's great to have you here. It's great to be able to talk all things Pro Wrestling East, because I think for a few years now, you guys have really been sort of, I guess, especially in terms of from what we've heard from wrestlers that have come on the show and spoken to us, leading the way in terms of how to run a wrestling promotion, because everyone that we have on who works for you guys always raves about how much fun it is, how well run it is, like the work that you guys all do, both in the ring and behind the scenes, to make it a real enjoyable experience for both the fans and the wrestlers. So first of all, I want to ask, because we ask every guest that we have on the show, obviously I know it's been a bit of a mixed bag of a year for you guys over at East. Talk to me about it, like in and out of the ring. How have the last 12 months been?
So East is myself and Tom. The two of us run the company together. I kind of do most of the talent liaison type stuff, which is why most of the talent sort of know me more than they know Tom. But yeah, so there's the two of us. The past year's been all right, actually. It's been weird, sort of, since we announced that we were going to go on this hiatus. I think people have kind of jumped on, I need to check them out whilst I can. So it's kind of felt like this past, the 3 shows I've done so far this year, it kind of feels like they've been some of our better shows compared to some previous ones. And, the wrestlers and the audience seem more into it than they have done sort of mid to tail end of last year. So that's kind of encouraging and also depressing in a way.
It's a bittersweet thing, isn't it? Like, it's nice that the support is there, but it's like, maybe could the support come a bit earlier?
Yeah, exactly. But I can't, we can't go back and change history. We can't go back in time and make people discover us earlier. So it is what it is. And I think we'll take this hiatus. We'll go out for now with a bit of an almighty bang, leaving people desperate to have us back, hopefully.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You want to go out in as big a way as possible to have that desire there for more, when people are like, come on, you got to do another one.
Exactly. Like, the last thing I want is people going, yeah, that's all right, that's done, let's move on. Because then they don't need us in their lives, and then what's the point? So we want people to miss us. We want people to be chomping at the bit for us to come back, and hopefully we give them enough. We've given them enough so far, and we'll give them enough the last show in November to make them want, to make that happen, to make them be chomping at the bit, waiting for us to come back.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, in terms of that's all like the behind the scenes stuff, but in the ring, you guys have been putting on some great shows again the last 12 months or so, like even before that. But in terms of the last year in business, like, you guys have been putting on some great shows, some really good matches, some really fun experiences. I mean, like, in the ring, whilst everything that goes on behind the scenes goes on, in the ring, you must be delighted with how things have gone. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's, there's probably only been 1 or 2 matches we'd consider, a bit duff over our like several year history. And I think a lot of that just comes from, ultimately, if you're in a better mood and you like your workplace, you work better. And not just in wrestling, but in any industry, if you're happy to be at work, you do a better job. And I honestly think that our talent are happy to come and work for us. And I think that's reflected in the performances we get from them. The fact that everyone genuinely seems to want to be here. At least I hope that's true. Like, they seem to want to be here with us, and they really put the effort in. And it feels like everyone's really putting the effort in. I don't watch the matches and feel like people are, sort of phoning it in. It feels like people are trying their absolute best to give us the best performance they can, and we really appreciate that. And I think our fans do as well.
Yeah, that's what's so important, isn't it? And I like, and it must be so nice, like validating to see as a promoter when the wrestlers are happy, when you know they're giving their all, when you know that they want to do the best for your company that they possibly can.
Yeah, it's great. Like wrestlers come to us with, with like story ideas and match ideas, and it's never just, oh yeah, I think I should beat everyone and be the champ. It's always, here's an idea that I think benefits me, but also benefits East and benefits all of us. And to me, that's important because if we're all doing better, we're all doing better. There's nothing that, it's not beneficial if one wrestler just comes and, puts himself over and that's the end of it. And the wrestlers that we book don't have that attitude. They want East to grow, which means that they all grow. They want to see their colleagues do better. And it's a really nice environment, like backstage at our shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So like, take me back to, for anyone who I guess like isn't fully aware of like your history, take me back to the beginning. Take me back to why Pro Wrestling East, why Cambridge, why was it the right time to set up this wrestling promotion and where you set it up, and I guess the background to it.
So I live in Cambridge. I grew up here. I moved away a bit, but then I ended up coming back. Before he moved up to Glasgow, Tom lived around this way as well. So that's that's our Cambridge connection. We're both lifelong wrestling fans. We're both just two nerds that met through the music scene that realized that we both like wrestling. So we'd kind of talked about it. Yeah, we should start our own promotion, because I've been running gigs for 20 years, like literally 20. I think it's this month or last month would have been 21 years since the first gig I ran.
Wow.
So I've got that experience of running events, just never running wrestling events. So Tom and I had been to a show one night. It was fine, but it wasn't what we would do. And then I think it almost felt like we were kind of daring each other. And then ultimately, by the end of that evening, we were just sitting at Tom's then girlfriend's house, and it kind of felt like by the end of that evening, we'd kind of dared each other to start a wrestling promotion. So then it kind of became a conversation we had. Were you serious? But were you serious? It's like, yeah, I think I was. Or maybe I was. So and then Tom had a mate who's not involved with us anymore, but a mate called Chris, who was involved for the first couple of shows. Who was a friend of Tom, who Tom also knew through music, who Tom thought would want to get involved. And so then Chris joined us as well. And it was just basically three people who know each other through music, but are also wrestling fans, almost, daring each other, and then realizing that, oh, we seem to have scheduled a meeting for the three of us where we're planning our wrestling company. Oh, I guess this is real then.
Did it translate? Did like you said, the experience in promoting, did the experience in promoting translate fairly comfortably from music to wrestling?
I think so, because ultimately there's a lot of things which are the same. Like there's a lot of things which I've learned from running gigs. Like there's a process when you're running a show called advancing a show, which is basically where you and usually the band's tour manager will, basically send over everything so nothing's left to the day. So an itinerary, where the venue is, how to get there, where to park, the itinerary, so what time we expect you to be there, what time we'll be sound checking, things like that. So things like that, which, do lend themselves to wrestling. Like we'll send wrestlers basically a pack before every show with, here's the venue, here's where you can park, please get there at this time, any problems, call this number. Just so nothing is left to kind of waking up and going, where are we tonight? How do we get there? So just things like that, which just kind of, lend themselves to having a better show if people aren't going, oh, we drove around for 20 minutes and we couldn't find the venue, or we didn't know where to park, because there's none of that, because we've dealt with that in advance, and that's just things I picked up from years of running gigs. Just, make sure everyone's got all the info in advance.
Yeah, I was going to
like a little thing, but it's important.
No, it is. It is. I was going to say the one thing you maybe don't need to do is a sound check, but then I remembered that Lana Osley is quite a key part of your opera, and maybe she would demand a sound check.
Yeah, as long as she brings the Geller Cup with her, I'm happy.
So that's all that needs to be brought. It's fine. And the vocals, of course, the sweet vocal talent of Lana Austin.
Of course. Wonderful woman.
Well, I mean, like in terms of that, in terms of like going through like that whole process, what was the like you said, you mentioned that night that you sort of like jokingly almost came up with the idea. What was the timeline in terms of that conversation to the first show? What was...
So, yeah, that would have been... So our first show was 29th of February 2020, so right before COVID. And this would have been sometime in the autumn 2019.
Yeah, excellent time to have a first show as well. Like,
yeah, I know, right? It's almost like we planned it. No,
yeah.
we didn't create COVID.
Again, it's like we were saying. It's like we were saying before, isn't it? It's that thing about getting the crowd hungry for more, isn't it? You give them a little taste.
Yeah.
And to wait so long for the next taste.
Yeah, and there nearly wasn't more. Like between COVID and between speaking out happening, like I just really wasn't. There was probably a 6-month period where I was adamant we weren't coming back because I just didn't want to. I just soured on the wrestling industry, especially a lot of it through the things I was discovering about. Thankfully, not talent that we were using, but talent that I respected, who I then lost all my respect for by finding out all these horrible things about them. And yeah, it just really made me not want to do this anymore until I kind of realized that, well, that lets them win.
Yeah.
But going back to the positive things, like you were saying. So yeah, it would have been sometime in the autumn, maybe the summer, but yeah, some sort of late 2019. And then we were like thinking, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should actually, we'll run a show. And then, do you remember WWE's Southpaw Regional Wrestling?
Yes. Yeah.
Where the whole punchline of the first season was there couldn't be a lethal leap year because that year wasn't a leap year.
Yeah.
So because we realized 2020 was a leap year, we thought, all right, well, we have to do it. Our first show, and it was a Saturday as well. So our first show had to be Saturday, the 29th of February, and we had to call it Lethal Leap Year. We just thought it would be fun to actually deliver a lethal leap year. So then that kind of gave us about, I think it was probably maybe 5 months or so between kind of the inception to the actual show happening.
Did you have like a, obviously, because again, you built this great roster, this very like at its heart, a very core roster of regulars who are always there each show. What was that like? Not what you had in mind, so obviously that's what everyone has in mind. But were those names that you got in, or a lot of those names, the names that you wanted from the off, the names that you'd like seen before, that you'd liked before, and you were like, we've got to get this guy, this guy, this guy?
Yeah, there was a mixture of, so there was sort of kind of 3 categories of wrestlers we were going for. There was wrestlers I was friends with already.
Mm-hmm.
There was wrestlers who I'd just seen around and really liked. And there was wrestlers who I really liked as well, but I thought specifically had star power and drawing power and would be the people to kind of put on the top of the poster and be like, hey, this guy, this guy, this girl are on the show. So that was kind of the 3 sort of categories I wanted to fulfill of, my mates, people I just liked as talent, and people that I liked as talent, but I was kind of relying on to do the heavy lifting in regards to drawing the audience.
Yeah, and you like, would it be fair to say you got what you wanted out of, again, especially for that first show?
Yes, so originally it was meant to be Chris Brooks in our main event against Germany, but then Chris moved to Japan, where he's absolutely killing it.
He slapped me more years.
Yeah, but we ended up getting Carl Fletcher instead. So, you may have heard of him. He's
doing something now, isn't he? I recognise the name. Like,
yeah. And our first show had Charlie Evans on, Carl Fletcher. So, yeah, in terms of getting the name value talent, we had them. We had Gene Money as well, who was kind of on the up at this point. And Warren Banks and Dan Maloney as well, who were, which obviously Warren's retired now, but Dan wasn't as high up as now then as he is now.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like our first ever match was Dan Maloney versus Warren Banks.
Yeah.
They were just 2 talents I'd seen that they had to be on our show.
It's just mad, isn't it? It is mad. Like, because again, like 4 years doesn't seem that long ago, and then you realize, like Maloney, like Kyle Fletcher, even like Charlie Evans, everything she's done in the last 4 years, like you realize how much has changed in that 4 years of wrestling.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, not just because of COVID, but just the way, NXT UK has pretty much come and gone. The UK industry shifted so much with Progress and ICW being these huge companies to not so much being these huge companies, British talent absolutely killing it in America and in Japan. And yeah, all of that kind of, 4 years ago wasn't anywhere near as it is now. And it's really cool to see, especially when it's someone who we've worked with, who's someone I kind of, watch with a smile going, that's that Dan Maloney fella. Yeah, he was in our first ever match. Yeah.
And again, that is like a super, I guess, like a super nice feeling, because again, and I think it's something that what I'd call the sort of like mid-range UK indie promoter would deal with, in the fact that like those aren't the names that you're going to be able to get through the door week in, week out, show in, show out, because again, now, especially now, because that stock has risen. And so like, I think people who follow maybe like the big companies like your Rev Pros, like your Progresses, are sort of are quite spoiled in the fact that you can get those names in so regularly. Whereas like you really appreciate it that bit more as a mid-range promotion when you can see those people and it's not at the ballroom and it's not at the 229 and it's not at the copper box. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like last year we had Amari and Leon Slater on a show, and that was very much, a one-off, because at the time Amari was living in Ireland and, Leon's doing stuff with TNA. So it's, I know I can't book those guys all the time, but having the opportunity to book them both on one show was incredible. And it was just I'm seeing like Amari's a talent I've really liked for years. Leon's a talent who I first saw at an Everything Pattern show a couple of years ago, and he's just got better and better and better. And they're just wrestling in Cambridge for me, for Tom, for us. It's, and it's not having to see them in a big venue. And it is kind of mind-blowing to think, like when you see a big band in a small venue, and it's kind of mind-blowing to think, they're wrestling in this ultimately quite a small venue in Cambridge for us. And that's brilliant.
I was going to say, have you had like, was there a particular standout moment like that where like, again, as a wrestling fan, where if you weren't the promoter and you'd just gone to East as a show, as a fan, you'd be like, holy shit, how have they managed to get that person?
I think it would be Leon Slater. It would be like, because that was the A7, Roy Johnson and Alexander Roth defending their tag titles against Amari and Leon Slater. And I think that was, just sort of such a large match for us. And it's, mind-blowing that it happened, and, not to speak too insider, but the big guys put over our guys, and that was awesome.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Those moments like that are always that bit special, aren't they? Because like, again, like a lot of the time you'll see a big name come in and they're going to win their match, because you're like, oh, there's no way that guy's losing. Like even the like the part of you that wants to believe it. Like I'm going to throw it way back, but the one time I remember like that was I don't know if you know Riptide Wrestling down in Brighton.
Yeah, I'm good friends of those guys.
Oh, yeah, I love those guys. Like Tom and Josh, brilliant guys, like fantastic.
Yeah, Tom and I know each other through music.
Oh, really? Oh,
and Tom, PWE Tom, knows Josh, because Josh used to live around this way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I know Tom Riptide, and Tom East knows Josh Riptide.
Oh, it's weird. Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I love those guys. They're brilliant. Riptide was. I used to live in Brighton, so Riptide was my regular like monthly treat wrestling wise, because like again those guys put on great shows. It was fantastic, and the standout that's there for well, you'll know what I'm going to say. Everyone's going to know what I'm going to say is when Pac showed up at the Bright Helm, and everyone was convinced. Like me and my mates were like joking about it before. We were like, oh, there's no way Pac showed, like, because it was just after he'd been released, and we were like, oh, imagine if the surprise was Pac. Like none of us actually believed it would be Pac, but like he comes out. The pop is unlike anything I've ever heard before, especially for that size venue. But again, it takes back to like, the guys around there, like you knew Pac was winning that match, but there was a moment like halfway through that match, you're like, is Cara going to win? Is Cara going to go over? And you're like, you pray for it, you beg for it to happen, but it's not going to ultimately. So when you have those big names, again, like putting over the current talent, the regular talent, like it's more special.
Yeah, like we had Sunshine Machine at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Who came in and lost to Fight and Flight, which was a really big moment for Fight and Flight, getting to wrestle TK and Mambo, but also defeat them, because it's those moments that make that make kind of your wrestlers, as it were, kind of elevated, getting to work with bigger, more experienced talents and getting to learn from them.
Yeah,
and we're not the biggest promotion. We are somewhere in the middle, lower end of the middle, whatever. So, but I want talent who work for us to get opportunities to get better, because if it's a bunch of young green kids wrestling each other, then there's no real point. No one learns anything. So having guys like Amari and Leon Slater, guys like TK Cooper and Chant Mambo coming in and not only wrestling here but being willing to put our talent over, it shows good character on their part, but it just really helps out as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like you say, I think Fight and Flight are the perfect example of that. Because again, we had them on the show, and they spoke about you guys and the work you've done and how much they love working with you guys, and the fact that you gave them that chance as Fight and Flight to do something different, to do something a bit new that they'd wanted to do. And that, like, again, that sort of like validates them, and it validates your faith in them, the fact that they've done it right, and the fact you want to push them, you want to help them with this thing that they're doing, this new idea that they come up with. Like you say, it works for everyone. It gives them a push, and like for them also to be like, okay, these guys care about us because they're giving us not just these big matches, but these matches where we're going over as well. Like it's just like such a nice relationship.
Yeah, I like to think so. I like to think that we are all friends backstage, and there's not any. Well, I mean, occasionally, but there's barely any tension, and as I said earlier, ultimately we all want what's best for the greater good, as it were. And like having talents like RJ Singh, who is so experienced and so selfless, and just such a great guy, just having him there, being willing to always like watch matches, give feedback to younger talent, just having stuff like that as well is just really useful because, again, like I said, that's how you learn, is by getting those opportunities and that knowledge from the more experienced hands. And yeah, people like RJ, like Sunset Skip, who's been around the block a million times, been around the world. Having those guys backstage being kind of fatherly figures is like awesome and really useful.
Yeah. Especially again, like you say, like especially I guess those first few shows where you guys are relatively new to it, like to have those vets, to have those guys that know how a wrestling show should be run and know what it takes and like know from what they've seen backstage, to have that input must be just really helpful as well.
Yeah, like because I have been running gigs for all this time, but it's not. Whilst there are lots of things that are transferable, there are things that aren't. And ultimately, Eastern Desist next month is only our 13th wrestling show we've ever run. So in the grand scheme of wrestling, I mean, WrestleForce probably runs 13 shows in a month. I mean, and Ollie Peace is not a great guy. But they probably run that many shows in a month, and we've done that many entirely. So there are still things that, that we learn, and things which we kind of miss and have to be told, maybe you should have done that, and then we'll try and do it next time. Like one of our referees, Lauren Carnell, who's absolutely wonderful. Her partner Patrick is basically one of the unsung heroes of our company, who just does a million and one things backstage. Patrick W. Reed, and one show when Patrick couldn't be there, Lauren and Patrick couldn't be there, Oscar Harding had filled in for Lauren, and he gave me a bit of advice just on a few things that hadn't been done, and it occurred to me that Patrick always did those things, and I hadn't even noticed they needed doing because Patrick just did them. It was just things that little things like making sure someone knows it's your job to grab the entrance jacket and take them back. Because Patrick was so on top of these things, it meant that we'd kind of hadn't really realized that, oh yeah, that's a job that needs doing. So it was really good that Oscar felt he could tell me that, because now I'm more conscious of it. And if Patrick's not around, or if he's doing other things, I know to grab someone and go, right, your job, please, is entrance jacket removal and returning. And I don't think since then, okay, there might be one or two times, but for the most part, we've had that covered, and we've had someone who knows to go and grab the coats and take them back.
Yeah, but like you say, like Lauren and Patrick, again, I think like generally two unsung heroes of British wrestling, like what they give the scene, not just like, especially like Lauren with her like in ring stuff, like refereeing, but like just in general for what they bring to shows, like the way they know what needs to be done, the way they know how shows need to be run. Like that input is just so invaluable. And again, like takes us back to, I guess, how much people care about you guys in terms of like, must be nice knowing that like they're willing to go that extra mile, do those extra things, the things that you hadn't even, like you say, considered, like that they just do.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they didn't care, they would just take the money and be like, yep, thanks, I'm off, see you later. And that would be it. But the fact that, like in that time, the fact that Oscar went out of his way to say, hey, a couple of things, he could have just said, thanks, I'm off, see you later. But he must have, wanted us to improve, which shows to me that, he cared about the environment and cared about what we were doing. And the fact that, like Lauren and Patrick will go and do these things and just, go out of their way. And they really do go out of their way, especially Patrick. Like, Lauren's turning up as a ref. Patrick could just sit around and do nothing. And I've told him that repeatedly, but the amount of stuff he does for us, it's really great to know that people care enough about what we do to want to help us improve. And my friend Matt as well, who's a mate of mine from the real world. You know, he just wanted to come support East, but he always comes up for our shows, and the amount of little things Matt will do, even if it's putting chairs out, helping us move some staging around, getting the entrance like set up. He just does that because he wants it to do well, and like we really appreciate that. And it's those little things that in and of itself, man moves a few chairs might not feel like the most important thing, but me walking out of the room, doing something, coming back and seeing the chairs are out, that's a huge weight off my shoulder. That's a huge weight off Tom's shoulder, because it's less that we have to do, because other people have just sort of taken that initiative and really helped us out, and we really appreciate it.
For sure. So in terms of, again, it's weird because like you say, like you guys have been going for like 4 years now, obviously COVID notwithstanding, and like 13 shows. When you take it into account, like it's really 3 years, isn't it? It's not 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, we lost basically a whole year to COVID. But like if you're on 3 years, 13 shows in 3 years is still really good going. Like for what is basically a startup promotion. Like again, 3 years is not very long for a promotion to be running at all. So to even reach that number of shows is really impressive. But like, would you have like a I guess it's tricky because you always attribute it to like long standing things. But if I were to ask you for like your Pro Wrestling East Mount Rushmore of like the 4 pillars of East that you think we wouldn't be where we are now without these 4 wrestlers.
So are we talking in front of the camera or behind the camera?
Let's talk wrestlers, but like if they do stuff behind the camera as well.
Yeah, cool. RJ Singh?
Yeah.
Definitely RJ. As I said before, RJ is that kind of veteran presence in the locker room who genuinely wants wrestling to succeed and wants wrestling to do well, and having him around is just wonderful. And there's a reason he was our first ever men's champion. Peter Nixon. Peter Nixon is a hometown guy, Cambridge guy. I know him through the real world, as it were. And it's been, I know he's retired now, but having him on our shows helped because he was that local presence that local wrestling fans would go, hey, I know that guy. And that was really, that was really great having him on our shows because, it did kind of anchor us to what had come previously with wrestling in Cambridge, which was, I know Peter Nixon. He's that guy that's from around here. So that's to Charlie Morgan. Again, someone who's retired now, but was someone who's originally from Cambridge, again, but then made her name everywhere. I mean, Charlie was a fantastic talent. And again, the reason she was our first ever women's champion is because she was just someone who cared about what we do and wanted things to do well. Just as an aside comment, when we did the Money Pit Rumble last year, which was a 13 tag team rumble, so 26 people. Was it? No, nine teams, 18 people. Charlie Morgan kind of pulled everyone aside, thinking I wasn't within earshot, to basically agent the match and get everything just because she wanted to. And when I mentioned it to her, she's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't think you were there. Wouldn't think I was stepping on toes." I was like, "No, I'm grateful." Like, you took that initiative to basically grab everyone who was in the match to make sure that no one was going to step on anyone's toes and everything ran smoothly. That's just that veteran mindset and someone that wanted things to go as well as they possibly could. And she could have just, left it, done whatever and been in the ring, been out the ring. But she wanted to use the knowledge she had to make that match go as smooth as possible. And she's a big reason why that Rumble went as smooth as possible, because Rumbles can be a bit of a cluster. And this one, I think we pulled off, and a lot of that is because of Charlie Morgan grabbing everyone backstage and going, right, let's plan things and make sure everyone's on the same page. And so then in fourth, I want to say Ollie Peace.
Yeah.
Oliver Wall from Oliver's Army. If you don't know, Ollie Peace owns WrestleForce. We hire a ring from him, which is kind of how we started our relationship. Was he had a ring, so we used him for that purpose. But then we got to know and realized how good a wrestler he is, how good a trainer he is, how good a guy he is. And when we came up with this idea for the Oliver's Army tag team, which was one of Tom's ideas actually, Ollie's just run with it. He's just really embraced it. And seeing him and Kieran do something that's very different to what they do most other places is just brilliant. And just to see how much Ollie gives to that character. Just things like turning up for a show, he's bought him and Kieran matching berets and matching camo trousers. He didn't need to do that. He could have just worn some black tights, but he wanted to do that because he knew it would help the gimmick. And And yeah, it's just the little things like that, which you can tell how people do really appreciate and do really want to succeed, because they're going kind of above and beyond and out of their way to, to tell the stories we want to tell.
Yeah, I love that. I love that's a great four as well. I think like that is a spot on four for you guys. I think that's a four that's really like, again, like you say, like shaped the company, been there for the company, but also like you say, doing that extra stuff behind the scenes is just like, again, that just extra little touch that I think is what makes the season great. Like you say, like in terms of, you know, when speaking out happened after, like during COVID, and so many of us were left so jaded, like just by wrestling in general. Like again, even as a fan, I'm like, I'm not sure I'll ever watch wrestling again. Like, you know, but then you have those moments. You remember those people that make it worth it, that make it worth watching, that make it worth being a part of, and it gives you that extra like push to be like, okay, I want this to be the best it can be for the scene.
Yeah,
which is amazing. And again, like in terms of that, I mean, obviously, like again, 4 years, however you want to spin it, is a really good solid time to run a company for, especially in Brit Rest where things are so shaky. Like you see companies start up, do one show, do two shows, and then they're gone. Like it's so difficult to get that longevity. But like when you put your heart into that, when you put your like soul into that for so long, like what was the point where, I guess for you and Tom, you realized it, like you needed the break from it, this hiatus that you're going on, that you like, because obviously I imagine that can't be an easy decision to come to, or even to pull the trigger on.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy, but ultimately it all comes down to money. Like we're losing money on our shows. I think out of every show we've run, one has covered itself.
Mm.
And like, I don't mind losing some money because it's enjoyable and it's rewarding. But when losing some money becomes losing some more money, becomes, this is actually quite a substantial amount of money we've lost here, which then becomes me begging my parents for some cash to keep things going. It just got to a point where we were just losing too much. And it's sad, because I hate money. I wish money didn't exist. Can't we just barter? Can't we all just barter? It'd be so much better. But yeah, I wish it didn't come to that, but it was purely it was financial. It was the shows weren't making enough to cover what they were spending. And could we spend less? Perhaps, but then it wouldn't be the shows that we do. A lot of our expenditure comes from, just to let people in behind the curtain a little bit.
Mm.
So wrestlers get paid a wage and their travel expenses. So if you get a lot of wrestlers who live nearby, their travel expenses will be a lot lower. If you get wrestlers that live near each other, they can carpool, travel expenses are lower. We could just book wrestlers from East Anglia in London, but then we wouldn't have people like Lana Austin, Matthew Brooks, Rob Drake. We wouldn't have those talents that make us kind of stand out, because we're bringing talents to East Anglia that you aren't necessarily going to see on another East Anglian wrestling show, because they would cost too much in expenses. People like Harry Milligan, Liam Judd, Cameron Kai, who are coming up from Portsmouth. People like Mike Shade, our women's champ, who's coming from the south as well. So a lot of our money does go on those travel expenses, bringing in this varied roster. And that's one of the things I think makes East special, is it isn't just a load of wrestlers from London, or a load of wrestlers from Hertfordshire, or a load of wrestlers from the Midlands. It's wrestlers from all over the UK, which I think makes our shows kind of special compared to some other shows. But the trade-off for that is it costs a lot of money. And we don't want to do shows where we've had to really scale back and just use, wrestlers from within a 50-mile radius or whatever, because that wouldn't be what we do. That'd be a fun show, but we would feel things were lacking. And sure. I think that's one of the reasons why we don't just want to say, oh, we'll just keep running shows, but cheaper, because it wouldn't be as good a show as we know we can produce.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to sacrifice the quality for that. Yeah. Like you say that. And again, I imagine it can't be an easy decision to make, but like in terms of, like you say, and like we spoke about earlier, going out with a bang, going out on top, going out with one big blow-off show. I think you guys are definitely set to do that, at least. I know only a couple of matches have been announced for November 9th, but like it looks like you guys are going to have one stat card. I mean, like in terms of time we're talking, there's only been 2 matches announced. Is there anything else you can give us? Is there anything else you can?
Yeah, I'll give you something which we haven't announced yet. Well, something we've sort of touched upon. So our tag team champions are Oliver's Army, which is Oliver Peace, and Kieran Lacey. And at our last show, the 114, Cameron Kai and Harry Milligan became number 1 contenders. the Raffle Bros also pointed out how they kind of got screwed out of the titles by Oliver's Army cashing in on them. So we felt they needed to be in the match as well. And then the Super Soldiers of Sacrifice, Cy Gregory and Hustle Malone, pointed out that they've also got a DQ win over Oliver's Army. So surely, if anyone deserves a title match, it's them. So at Eastern Desist on 9th of November at Storage Centre in Cambridge, we've got a 4-team gauntlet for Tag Team Championships. Oliver's Army, 114, Raffle Bros, and Super Soldiers.
Oh, I love that. Exclusive. You heard it here first. Amazing. I love that. I love that. It's going to be a great match. That's going to be incredible. I think that's the thing as well. Like having those matches again, especially before you go on like something like a hiatus, because again, we had a few months ago, we had Ivy on just before Wrestle Carnival went on hiatus. And she was talking about how, like, again, like that determination of like, if they're going out, I want to go out on top. I want to make sure I'm the one going out on top. And you've got that with the tag team, with Nightshade as well. I'm sure we'll have matches. Like it's a case where like they want to go out on top. Like for however long you guys are going to be away, they want to be the champ for that amount of time. Because like again, Ivy was like, no, that time counts. Like that's my title reign. If like when they come back, that's a continued reign.
Yeah, I mean, well, hopefully, and we have spoken to a few other promotions, but hopefully you will see our belts defended elsewhere whilst we're not running our own shows. The big sort of plan for the hiatus is to try and get funding. Like to try and get some art council or lottery funding. That's kind of the plan. Is ultimately our biggest problem is financial. So if we can get some money from elsewhere, then we're sorted.
Yeah.
So, but we kind of I needed a break mentally. I couldn't, we couldn't keep running the company whilst trying to put all this effort into funding applications.
Yeah.
So they kind of had to be that, right, we need to take a hiatus. But it is, we do hope it's a hiatus. We do plan on coming back in 2026. We do plan on, coming back with a bang again, out of the ashes too, because we called our first show after COVID out of the ashes. So yeah, hopefully these funding applications do amount to something, and hopefully there is someone there willing to go, yeah, here's some cash. And then, yeah, brilliant. Then we can come back and keep doing it with less of a worry about the financial things and more just focusing on the creative aspect.
For sure, absolutely. I think that's what we all hope, isn't it? I think that's the thing. Like again, like you say, is I've been at other companies before, like just work-wise, where they need to get some funding, like you say, lottery or art council mainly, like funding, where just to keep things going. And you're like, it's essentially an extra full-time job. Like that stuff takes so much time. It's not easy, and like you say, like sometimes, like if you got everything else going on at once as well, you just can't handle it.
Yeah, so there needs to be that. It wouldn't, if we were trying to apply for funding while still doing this, the funding applications would have suffered, and the shows would have suffered, and we would have been putting on subpar shows, and then failing in getting funding by, half-assed applications. So yeah, as you say, something kind of had to give. But I do hope that people don't forget us in our absence, and I do hope that when we do come back, people do want us to come back, and they don't just go, oh yeah, I forgot about them. Oh well.
No, hopefully not. Hopefully not. I was going to say, moving on, like again, you're going to love how I expertly blend kayfabe and real life here. But in terms of funds, like surely you guys must be getting some extra funding from Chase Anthony, right? Because the Eastern Desist is being run in partnership with him, right?
Don't get me started on Chase Anthony. The guy thinks he's a lawyer. I don't even know who he is. He appears out of nowhere with some phony, supposedly legit legal documents. Threatening to shut our company down. I don't know who this guy is.
It was outrageous. And he got exactly what he wanted out of it, didn't he? Or what at least he and Means and Scotty Rourke wanted out of it. Whereby, again, Truman Roswell is an interesting character. I think we'll get to him in a sec. But, like, I mean, no one likes to see a title lost that way.
No, and I think the crowd was the right kind of angry. They weren't, oh, this is awful, I hate this. They were, oh, I want to see you get your comeuppance memes, and that's what you want from your villains in wrestling. You want the audience to see the villains succeed, and then hopefully get that reward of seeing the villains get their comeuppance. And I think we closed out that show last time with everyone just like, oh, I really want to see the bad guys get theirs.
Yeah, and that's what you want. Like you say, that's exactly what you want. And again, like, Scotty, I don't know what to make of Scotty Rourke. I mean, like, he's another one, isn't he? You don't know whether to love him or hate him. He changes so frequently. Like, 1 minute you love him, and then he does something like that, and you're like, come on.
He's a fantastically talented bastard.
I think that is a spectacular way to put it. Yeah, absolutely. He's exactly like extremely talented. What a dick. Oh, come on. Like,
and that's
poor Truman. Or he's gone through a lot as well. I mean, he's got his mind preoccupied enough with all his conspiracy theories. Like, he didn't need another one.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard, like, being, wrestling as much as he does, whilst you're also trying to prove the existence of Bigfoot. I mean, that in itself is basically a full-time gig, trying to prove Bigfoot.
Time. Right.
Exactly. And then all the alien stuff as well, trying to make people understand that Australia doesn't exist. These things take time.
I tell you what, like, when you guys do return, he's going to come up with a whole list of things, like conspiracy theories he's debunked in that time.
I hope so.
Like, he has been hard at work. Look at that.
I hope so. But Truman is an absolutely fantastic talent, and someone who, kind of just to go back into the real world for a bit, we never really, like, we needed someone for a show. Peter Nixon had recommended Truman because he'd worked on it with him before. I just said, yeah, fine, whatever, we'll book this Truman guy. I didn't really know anything about him. And it was purely organic. The audience just really gravitated towards him. And if you had told me at the start of East that our second ever men's champion would be Truman Roswell, I wouldn't have believed it, because it wasn't someone we even knew, let alone someone that we held up to such a high regard. But yeah, it was such an organic process, just watching Truman get better and better with every match, and watching the audiences just go from kind of booing him to wanting to boo him to loving to hate him, and then to just basically just giving up and just embracing it. I mean, he's like the peak good guy we have in our company, and that was never the plan. That was just because people love him so much, and they love his character and the quirkiness he brings to it, whilst also being a fantastic talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, how do I put it? Those are like the crazy moments of wrestling, is it? Like, as like we all know as like fans, in terms of like just that unexpected nature of it. Like the fact of, like, I guess the two that spring to mind are again, something that sort of like I hadn't really clicked and I knew roughly, but like Kanji at Resurgence, when we had her on the podcast talking about like how her debut was sort of like an accident, and it just sort of came about because, again, like a few people got injured, they needed someone to fill that void, and then she's just so loved at Resurgence. She's like, again, like if you talk about Mount Rushmore, she's up there for Resurgence. She's one of those pillars. And like the other one that springs to mind is again down in Brighton, a Riptide, Mad Kurt, who again, like, Gideon Gray was booked on that first ever show, and just like said to Tom and Josh, like, I know this guy, can I bring him along? And they were like, yeah. And then he came there and got over so organically himself, like beyond Gideon, to the point where like everyone at Riptide just like, again, hated him and then loved to hate him and then just loved him. And it's just crazy how those things work in wrestling sometimes, where like this person that you'd never even considered really as a major player becomes such a pivotal part of what you're doing.
Yeah, talking about Kurt, who I miss a lot. Harry Milligan started by Kurt going, hey, do you mind if I bring Harry? We're doing this thing where he's my brother. And I was like, all right, fair enough. Don't know who he is, but sure. And Harry just got over instantly just by being like the younger, more insufferable version of Kurt. And even after, since Kurt's no longer with us, Harry still, now is Harry Milligan, not as Harry Chapman, but he still performs and still has people caring about what he does. And that was just through Kurt going, can I bring this kid along? He's my fake little brother. I mean, real little brother. And Fight and Fly as well. Yeah, and Fight and Fly as well was an accident. Bo Bells and Sky Shaw. So originally we needed people short notice. And so if you remember the Diadem, Tarquin and Cordelia, they were on our first shows because I know them in the real world, as it were. So whenever I needed kind of someone desperately to fill in, I'd kind of go to them and go, right, who do you know who's, young and good enough to do, to jump in on a show last minute. Mm. And Bo Bells and Sky Shaw were both talents that they recommended to us because they knew them from training. And they both just kind of filled in like last minute, absolutely smashed it, and then came up with the idea of, we should form a team, and we just ran with it. We were like, yeah, I like that idea, let's do it. You want to be a team? Let's be a team. You want to be Fight and Flight? Cool, be Fight and Flight. Let's run.
They came in, like you say, as like a sort of like a last minute recommendation. And again, like they've taken Fight and Flight and just sort of run with it again, like out of nothing.
Yeah, and it's great because you see that the talent, obviously they want these ideas to do well because it benefits them, but also because it benefits East, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how our locker room want to succeed, but also want us to succeed and want us all to succeed. And it's really, really lovely to see that, yeah, these people come together and wanting all of us to get better.
Yeah.
And it's great watching them, kind of like a proud parent, watching them go from, I think it was both Sky and Bo's first ever matches were at East. So kind of going from seeing that to seeing where they are now. It's really cool.
Yeah. Again, really nice seeing that evolution.
Yeah, definitely.
I was going to say as well, in terms of the evolution, I'm going to get your views as a promoter as well, because I say to a lot of people, a lot of wrestlers that we have on the podcast and a lot of other people that I just know through wrestling, that there's always that argument of Brit Rest isn't where it was before COVID. But I would make the argument that although Brit Rest and maybe certain promotions especially aren't as big as they were before COVID, I think the talent is better now. I think obviously before COVID, you had the big names who were the big names and were always top of the card. But I think now you have more, I think you had the top names before COVID and then this mid card that was very bunched together. But now I think you have a lot more really great talent before that mid card than you did before.
Yeah, I would say, and this might be a controversial take, but I would say that British wrestling is in a better place now than it was, because sort of pre-COVID, everything was very much concentrated around Rev Pro, ICW, Progress. And there was these kind of three tip-top companies, and then nothing else really mattered below that. And I'd say now there's more companies, none of us, with the exception of maybe North, are getting, the kind of numbers that Progress and ICW used to get. But there's more promotions, more good quality promotions.
Yeah.
So, you can come and see us in Cambridge, you can go and see Resurgence, you can see Riot Cabaret, you can see North. There's a million others as well. And these are all, promotions that didn't necessarily exist or weren't as high as they are now before COVID. And there's more, whilst there's may not be any, it may not be as many A-level promotions, there's a whole lot more B-level promotions, and there's a whole lot more C-level promotions, and everything's more spread out and less kind of concentrated on everything is just around these sort of three companies, which meant that there wasn't as many, sort of upper card opportunities, because there's only so many talent that can be at the top of three companies. And now with there being more companies kind of, bubbling around that kind of upper middle level, it gives more talent a chance to get opportunities, because there's more good places to work, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's spot on. I think it's exactly spot on. And I think it's exactly like you say, what you guys, what plenty of other promotions across the country have done is build that need for a promotion of a certain size in an area like Cambridge, like Resurgence in Leicester, I don't want to say TNT because Liverpool's huge. I think that's an unfair analogy. But something like NGW and Hull, other places like that, where there's these markets for it that have been untapped and were sort of almost starved of wrestling because again, you'd have to go to London to watch Progress or Rev Pro or something like that, or even go up to Liverpool to see TNT. And now those gaps have been plugged. There is just more wrestling available to people now, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah, it means that you do get less big shows, but if people are not having to travel and can see good quality wrestling on their doorstep, then that's a plus, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that brings us nearly to the end of our recording, but we do have a little feature that we want to get into here with you. And I was weighing up whether to dishing the dirt with you, because I think it might be unfair for a promoter to dish that much dirt on their wrestlers. But we've got a feature here called the matches that shaped my life, which we're going to do instead. So again, I'm going to give you some scenarios. You let me know what match or what moment springs to mind.
Go for it.
So the first one is what is the first match you remember watching ever?
It's not the first match I saw, but it's the first one I really remember the most of, and that's Undertaker, Hulk Hogan at Survivor Series 91.
Nice.
Because I remember that being the first pay-per-view I watched, and that was obviously the main event of that pay-per-view, which is why it really stands out. And the whole Ric Flair coming in with the steel chair and the tombstone onto the chair, and then that led to this Tuesday in Texas. Yeah, that's kind of my sort of formative wrestling years.
Yeah. I mean, like, first pay-per-view is one of this list. So, like, obviously that one it's like again, it's an iconic one because you see it as like, again, the rise of, we were talking about like before, like the rise of this wrestler in The Undertaker, who I don't know, it seemed like at least that WWE had never really figured that he would be a main event star, like a big star, like, you know, a marquee of the company, with the amount of time he was, especially. And then he has that match, and all of a sudden, like, his trajectory just shoots way up. And like, that's like the birth of it, like there. I know, obviously, like, I know the character and everything formed before that, but like, that's the birth of the rise of The Undertaker, that match against Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, because I would have been a kid at the time, but I never would have thought Undertaker would have won because it was freaking Hulk Hogan, you know? And this is just that weird zombie man.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought that weird zombie man would go on to become, you know, multiple decades at the top? But yeah, like you said, it all stemmed from that moment where, like, wait, what? Weird zombie man's beating Hulk Hogan? Hulk Hogan's lost?
Yeah. Like, who is this guy? Come on. What?
Yeah. And why is Ric Flair getting involved?
All wild. I love it. The next one might be the same, to be honest, because a lot of people do blend it, but it might be that match. It's like, it's the match that made me a wrestling fan. Would it be that match as well, or something different?
I think, I don't know, like, let's go like a year later. Let's go for Bret and Bulldog, because that was kind of the big cementing of, you know, wrestling in the UK, and yeah, that big British moment at Wembley, 92, SummerSlam 92, massive crowd. And, you know, if you liked wrestling before then, you loved wrestling afterwards, especially growing up in Britain. Yeah, that was kind of a, we can do it too kind of thing. Because, yeah, you know, British Bulldog was the British hero, you know, clues of a name, British Bulldog. Yeah. So, yeah, it was wild to see a British person having that moment on this big American company. Because, yeah, the world was less, you know, the internet didn't really exist. The world was a lot less global, as it were. So it was, WWE did still feel like this big American company as opposed to this big global company. And it was kind of wild to see, oh my God, there's one of us, and he's smashing it in America against a Canadian.
It's still mad though. Still mad that there's not another one since. Still mad that there's, like, again, the market was there for it now, and it's bigger now. Like, yeah. If the market was there in 92, why have you not done it since?
Yeah. But it's great to see AEW do Wembley. I mean, I've been to both All-Ins. And
they have been, like, don't you?
Like, the first one felt really special, even if I wasn't as interested. I don't think there was that good a show ultimately in terms of in-ring work. The second one was a great show.
I think the first one obviously was bigger and felt as a moment. The second show was a better show. Yeah,
exactly that. Like, the second one wasn't special in the sense that it wasn't the first one, but it was a much better show.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's cool that those moments do happen, and, you know, we do get to see them as British wrestling fans and actually be able to be a part of a big thing in global / American wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. The next one is the first live event I ever went
to. It would have been All-Star Wrestling, early 2000s, and it was dog shit. Who would have been on it? PN News was on it. Total dog shit.
And you still stuck with it?
Total dog shit. I didn't watch wrestling for months after that show. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, me and the mate I went with were both like, nah, wrestling's dead to us. It was such a crap show. Yeah, it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good.
You go in with such high hopes, and then you see that, and you're like, nah.
Yeah. But, you know, the UK Pitbulls were on that show, so that's cool, because they were on the first PWE show, so that was a nice little kind of full circle moment.
That is wild. I love that. That's crazy.
Yeah, because I got to know Bulk, because I used to live in Norwich, where those guys are from.
Did you tell them?
Might have done. Yeah, I think I must have done. Yeah. So I got
turned me off wrestling for months.
Yeah. Welcome to my show.
The next one is my first bit of wrestling merch.
I can't remember if it was exactly the first or very early on, but both me and my brother got the foam Legion of Doom spikes.
Oh, nice.
Which were just awesome. So I've got an uncle who lives in America.
Right.
So there was like cool merchandise that we couldn't get in the UK. So we'd basically like beg my parents to ask my uncle to buy them and ship it to us. So I think that was how we got the spikes. I think they came from America.
you signed roles though, right? Like when you were wearing the spikes.
Yeah, I think I would have been Hawk as I was kind of a bit skinnier.
Right.
And my brother was stronger, so he would have been Animal.
And there we go. That's all you need, isn't it? Well, especially
Exactly.
in that age as well. That's all you distinguish it by.
Exactly.
The next one is the next one's my first match. So as a promoter, I'm going to say, like we mentioned the first PWE match, the first match you ever had that opened your first show. Was that the first match that was booked, or what was the first match that you booked as the promoter?
First match booked was probably Chris Brooks against Gene Money, which ultimately became Carl Fletcher against Gene Money. I think we might have started with booking that main event and going from there. Yeah. But yeah, as we discussed earlier, the first match that happened on the show was Warren Banks against Dan Maloney.
Yeah, which again, like, just a crazy match. Like,
so good.
To open your first ever show, that is a high bar. Like, I would struggle, like, again, my memory is like, I wouldn't say I'm old, but my memory is definitely not what it was when it comes to remembering shows and exactly the running order of shows. But I'd struggle to think off the top of my head that many promotions would have had a better opening match as their first ever match than that.
You need to start strong. You need to start with a bang. Why wouldn't you put two fantastic talents like that on the opening match? Like, to me, the opening match is as important as the main event. Like, people's first and last impressions are the really important things. So the two biggest matches should be the opener and the closer, which is why I didn't really get the discourse around Bad Blood recently with what needs to main event. Because to me, you had those two big matches, Punk versus Drew and the Bloodline stuff. And it didn't matter as long as those two were the opener and the closer. To me, it didn't matter which one was which.
Yeah.
Because to me, they're both equally as important.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's a diss to put someone on first. I feel that it's a compliment because you're trusting that match to be the first thing the audience sees.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing. I think we've had wrestlers and promoters saying exactly the same. Where it's like, it's weird that it's seen as this diss because, like, if you're the first match, that's the match that gets people into the show. Like, it's your job to get the if the show has nothing can't top that, then you've had the match of the night in the first match.
Yeah, exactly that.
It's your job to set the standard. And if you can't do that, then maybe first match isn't right for you. But I feel like that's what you should be aspiring to. You should want to be, like you say, first out or last out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, spot on. The next one is this is the two-parter one, because again, it's another one where I say to the wrestlers, like, your favorite match you've ever seen and the favorite match you've ever been in. So I'm going to ask you, first off, your favorite match that you've ever watched.
Live in person.
Yes.
So I think the one I kind of remember the most was probably, and I hate mentioning one of the people's names since everything's happened, but when Will Ospreay beat Jimmy Havoc for the Progress title.
Right.
Because that was what, 2-year Jimmy Havoc title reign?
Yeah.
And Ospreay is then this isn't the William Ospreay of 2024. This is, 6-7 years ago, where he wasn't, the best in the world yet. He was still some kid ultimately.
Yeah.
And it was that moment of the hated Jimmy Havoc had held onto that title for literally like 2 years, finally having him lose it. I was literally hugging strangers. Like, we were literally just like, that's tough, and like grabbing random people, hugging them, being hugged by strangers. It was such a phenomenal moment.
Yeah.
Because it built up to it for years. And to be there in the flesh for it was just special.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Like you say, like, it's tricky now when you look back at moments and matches and you're like, I can't really enjoy that moment as much as I did.
Yeah.
Because of things that have transpired since. And it's sad because there have been a lot of moments. Like, there's been a lot of redacted matches. Like,
I feel so bad for Riptide. Like, pretty much most of their back
catalog library is like just crushed, which is upsetting because, again, some of those matches were just unbelievable. Like,
and some of them, half the talent were totally innocent, but
yeah. But like, again, it's tough, isn't it? Like, some of those matches I've tried like what you just like, you just can't. It doesn't hit the same. You just can't view it without seeing that anymore.
Yeah,
which is a shame. But like you say, that was like a monumental moment for Progress and for Ospreay. You know what I mean? It was such a, again, I think, defining moment for both of them moving forward.
Definitely.
What they would both become.
Like, definitely.
Sure. So the next part I always ask is, like, your favorite wrestling matches. So I'm going to say, what is the favorite match you've booked as a promoter of Pro Wrestling East? What has been your favorite match?
Can it be I want to kind of cheat because it's kind of two matches.
Go on.
But it was when the Super Raffle Bros beat the A7 for the belts, for the tag titles. And then Oliver's Army came out and used the title opportunity they'd bullied out of us earlier in the night to then beat the Raffle Bros, who only won the title like a minute before. That whole, the A7 Raffle Bros match was incredible. And that whole sequence with the pure joy of these underdogs winning the titles, to that realization of, crap, the dickheads are going to win, aren't they? And just watching the audience go, it was exactly what we wanted. And following such a phenomenal match, because the Raffle Bros, Khan and Tim, are both wonderful humans and wonderful talents. And same with Roth and Roy in the A7, are both great people, great talents. So they absolutely killed it. And then, to then have the ultimate high followed by that ultimate low was just absolutely perfect.
Well, it's one of those moments, isn't it, where it makes you, like, in a good way, it makes you be like, I love wrestling, I hate wrestling.
Yeah.
It's like that complete twist of emotion so suddenly. So I think that's what's so brilliant about wrestling, is just the fact that you can be on top of the world and then just literally be like, I never want to watch this again.
Exactly. And I think we nailed that, and that was, it was absolutely special to watch.
No, I love it. The next one is, this is an interesting one. So again, I'm going to have to twist it in terms of, what is the match that you wish you'd booked? Let's say indie. Let's keep it indie. Let's keep it sort of semi-realistic. Let's keep it indie. Let's say, what is the match indie-wise that you look at, like maybe like the British scene, and you're like, I wish that had been on my show?
Blue Pain versus Matt Cardona.
Everyone wants that, right? Yeah, that should be everyone's answer.
I mean, we had Blue Pain losing his mask, which was a huge honor that was on our show. So I don't feel it's that far removed. There's an alternate reality where we have Matt Cardona versus Blue Pain.
That could have been the mask removal one there.
Yeah.
And then you would have had almost like the very similar, like the Cara Noir Pac match, where you have that moment of like, you like, he's definitely losing, he's definitely unmasking. You're like, I don't want him to though. Maybe he's winning. Oh, that would have been good. Would have loved to see that. The next one, I don't even come on that feet. The penultimate one is someone comes to you and asks you, what is professional wrestling? What do you show them? What doesn't have to be a match, can be a moment. Like, what match or moment or something do you show them to be like, this is how I describe it?
It might be a weird answer, but I've also heard people give this answer before. But Invisible Man versus Invisible Stan.
Yes.
Because it shows what it is we're invested in. It's not we're not invested in the sports of it. We're invested in the story and the fact that match kind of does away completely with the athletes, and it's literally just Bryce Remsburg pretending. And I think that really shows what it is that pulls us in, because it eliminates the it's just fake aspect. Of course it is, because there's literally no one in the ring.
Yeah,
Bryce. But it really just shows the drama and of the storytelling and of the flow, the ebb and flow of the match.
Yeah,
by kind of reducing it right down to just a referee's reactions.
Yeah. I think that's such a perfect answer, like you say, because of the fact that, again, non-wrestling fans are always like, I think a non-wrestling fan thinks of, like, again, like the technical, the grappling and stuff, where you're like, oh, it's fake. You're like, obviously it's fake, but like they're trying to present it as real. Whereas, like, my favorite stuff, especially the stuff that I try and show people, is the stuff that's so blatantly not real. Yeah, that's why you love it, because like you say, you're not invested in it as a sport. You're invested in it because it's just batshit crazy.
Exactly, and then wrestling as a sport can be wonderful, but I don't think that two talents having a technical masterpiece is going to pull in someone off the street who's not interested.
Yeah,
like as blasphemous as that could be to some people, I don't think the layman off the street's going to see a 5-star Tokyo Dome Classic and go, oh my god, I love wrestling now. But I think they're more likely to see, wait, so he's invisible and it's his evil invisible brother. That makes people go, wait a minute. So what did you say?
Exactly.
Show me that video.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, again, I think for example, I always bring back for it, because like, again, that was my haunt for so long. But like, again, someone else who like has a bit of a is a bit dodgy now in terms of naming. But like, I remember I took my mate to Riptide had this like 3-day tournament over Pride weekend when they were crowning Mambo as their first champion. And one of the matches on the middle day was Dave Benson Phillips and Session Moth Martina against Deputy Dunn and what's the name? Gone blank. Come on, who is it? Yes, Santos. Sorry, I went totally blank on the name. I remember the other guy. Damn, that's upset. It should be the other way around. But like, yes, and like, I brought my mate who like had never been to a wrestling show before, and like didn't tell him Dave Benson Phillips as well. And like, we're the same age, so like we grew up watching the same stuff. And he was like, "Is that the guy from like Get Your Own Back?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because just because."
Yeah, why not?
And like that match finishes, and he was like, "Okay, I love this." I was like, "This is great," and I'm like, "Yeah, of course it is. It's just ridiculous."
Exactly. There's as a bit of a side note. Do you remember Tom Irvin, him with the Geezers?
Yeah.
So you know how cage match is based in Germany?
Yes.
So their British pop culture knowledge won't necessarily be as good as it should be.
Yeah.
So Tom Irvin once told them that the man that trained him was Dave Benson Phillips. So they added it to his profile.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. That's incredible.
They've since taken it off, but yeah, they just took him in good faith. He said, he just said something on Twitter like, it'd come up and say, "Oh, by the way, my trainer's name was Dave Benson Phillips." So they were like, "Oh, thank you, we've added that to your page," and it was on there for a while until someone clued them in that actually he's taking the piss out of you.
Oh, that is incredible! Oh my God! Oh, I had no idea of that. That's amazing. That is amazing. And again, just the fact that you would have just like you say, taken at face value, no idea who that is.
Yeah.
But okay, like why would he lie?
Exactly. You know, he's a wrestler telling us about himself. You know, thanks for contributing to the database.
That is amazing. Oh, yeah, wrestling is kind of wonderful, isn't it? It's kind of good. It's kind of good.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings on perfectly to the last question, and it's sort of what we've just touched on. It's I love wrestling because
it's absolutely everything. It is an athletic exhibition. It is a soap opera. It is just completely ridiculous. It is unbelievably camp. It is unbelievably serious and macho. It's just everything. And I love it.
Yeah, I think perfectly said. Well, Ian, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. That brings us
thank you.
nearly to the end. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been an absolutely wonderful time. Thank you very much.
I'm glad. And like again, like congratulations with everything you've done with these. I know you're going on this hiatus, and I wish you the best of luck with that. I hope that you return sooner rather than later. But yeah, like again, as someone who has only been able to watch you from afar, in terms of like what I've seen on social media or on YouTube, like again, it's been a pleasure to see what you guys have done and to hear about it from not just yourself, but all the wrestlers that you had on who speak so highly of it. Like you're clearly very well regarded, and I think the scene is, for as long as you're away, definitely going to miss you.
That means a lot to hear. Thank you very much.
But that brings on to our beautiful final question. It's not one that I've left. It's one, we have a running feature on the show where our last guest leaves a question for our next guest without any knowledge of who they're going to be leaving it for.
Yeah.
So this question was absolutely intended to be made for a wrestler. And so I think it's absolutely beautiful that you're here to answer it.
Go for it.
The question you've been left is, if wrestling was your full-time job and you weren't making enough money doing it, would you open an OnlyFans account?
Yeah, of course. Why not? Why wouldn't I? If there's a demand for it, then yeah, why not?
Would there be a demand for it though?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not with me. Maybe Tom. Not with me.
Is that what we're saying now? Tom's the more likely to get the OnlyFans subscribers in.
Yeah, I reckon so.
There we go. Well, there you go. You don't need the lottery funding. There's your money brought in. Set it up.
Tom, come on.
Yeah, get it done. Beautiful. Well, I love that question was left to you. I think that's fantastic. I think that is brilliant. And I appreciate you answering it so swiftly as well, so obviously as well, as if not even a thought. You clearly thought about it before.
The answer was right there.
Should we do it? Which is brilliant. But that leads us on to our close. And as you know here, we always give our guests the last word. So 9th of November, Pro Wrestling East, East and Desist, final show before hiatus. It's going to be an absolutely stacked card. For anyone who is still on the fence about going, who hasn't checked out Pro Wrestling East yet, who you would encourage to come and check you guys out before you take this break, what would you say to them to get them to Cambridge on November the 9th and see East and Desist?
Your favourite wrestlers probably say that we're really good. So, check us out. No, it's going to be, like, we don't want to go on a hiatus, but, we're kind of been in the situation, and we definitely don't want to be forgotten whilst we're away. So we need to make sure that this last show is unbelievably memorable, and for all the right reasons. So, why would you want to miss out? This show's going to be big. This show's going to be memorable. Lots of cool stuff's going to happen. And I'm not just, obviously I'm trying to sell tickets here, but I do think there'll be an element of, FOMO, or fear of missing out, if you don't go to this and you hear about it afterwards and you hear about all the cool stuff you missed.